Yes. Okay, fantastic. So, hello everyone, and welcome to Intersectionality Awareness Week 2026. The campaign runs from 11th to 17th of May, and we are very happy to host another panel discussions with another amazing group of speakers, and we will introduce you to them very shortly. Just so you know, the session is being pre-recorded and it will be made available to everyone from Friday, 15th of May. So I'm Daniele Lul, my pronouns are he, him, and I am the co-founder of ParaPride. Today's event is a partnership between ParaPride and Inclusion London, and I am co-hosting this with Faryal Velmi from Inclusion London. Hello, Faryal.
Hello.
Yeah, this is the first time that you and I are doing this sort of thing together.
No, we're going to be a good double act. I can feel it.
Yeah. So today's panel is titled Living Our Best Intersectional Lives, Journeys Through Race, Disability, Queerness, Culture and Belonging. The conversation will explore how systems of inequality overlap and affect access to opportunities, safety and sense of belonging, particularly for queer people of color, disabled people, LGBTQ plus immigrants from different socioeconomic backgrounds. And we will hear from the experiences of our panel, and we will reflect about the challenges, but not only, we also want to talk about the strengths and the resilience and the pride within these communities. So we will be touching on things like intersecting identities and overlapping forms of discrimination, barriers to access and belonging, and also challenging exclusion. So before I hand over to Faryal, who will introduce you to our panelists, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Intersectionality Awareness Week. So IAW is an annual awareness campaign created by ParaPride, and it encourages people to reflect and to learn and have an open conversation about intersectionality. This term has existed for many years, even though we have been using it more often in more recent years. It is a concept which has been developed by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, who is an American civil rights advocate. And it helps to understand how different aspects of a person's attributes, such as their race or their gender identity or their disability or socioeconomic background, can overlap and shape their experiences of discrimination or disadvantage, especially to how those attributes relate to the systems of oppression in society. So, for example, a person of color may experience racism or inequality or disadvantages, and a disabled person is likely to face ableism or barriers in life because, well, society isn't always built to accommodate accessibility and things like that. And also an LGBTQ plus person may face homophobia or transphobia or hate crime because of their gender identity or orientation. And so when people experience overlapping forms of discrimination at once, they can have multiple challenges, and that can make life more difficult. However, these are identities that are part of who we are, and there's something that we want to feel proud of. And at the same time, we want to have the right to be treated fairly and be treated with respect. And so Intersectionality Awareness Week is about creating a space to share experiences and to celebrate diversity and build understanding and empowerment and connections. And so today we're really looking forward to hearing from our panelists and to learn from their experiences. And on that note, I will hand you over to Faryal, who will introduce you to the panel and will start the discussion.
Great. Hello, everybody. Yeah, it's lovely to be here today, and yeah, really excited to be at this. Really, this is setting up to be a great conversation. So, just to very briefly say, just Inclusion London, we are a Pan London organisation. We support deaf and disabled people's organisations across the capital, and yeah, definitely when it comes to intersectionality, very passionate about that, and it's great to be working with ParaPride on this great initiative, which is not really, it's the first time we've seen it Intersectionality Awareness Week happen in the UK in this way. So, great to be part of this week. So I'm going to now introduce to two great panelists. I'd like you to please just talk a little bit about yourselves, and then we're going to go into the first questions. So we have Donna Jones. Please go ahead, Donna.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Donna Jones. My pronouns are she and her. I identify as a Black lesbian feminist scholar activist. I'm currently working at London Metropolitan University. I'm the head of subject here. So that means I'm the head of psychology courses, social work courses, and youth courses currently. I'm also the founder of the Rainbow Room. Little plug there.
Mm.
The Rainbow Room at London Metropolitan, it's an inclusive LGBTQIA plus space. It's a physical space in the university for LGBTQIA plus students and staff, and most importantly for me, for the local community, the local queer community. So much happens in the Rainbow Room in terms of activities, in terms of local organisations using that space for their training, to meet with their volunteers, etc. It's become a real kind of hub within the university, of which I'm very, very proud. And for now, that's me. So lovely to be here.
Great, thanks, Donna. And now, Alex, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm very excited to be sharing this space with all of you. Very exciting moment, and also very awesome people to share the room with. So I'm Alex Vasquez. My pronouns are he, they. I am originally from Costa Rica in Latin America, and I moved to London in 2021 to do my master's in King's College London. I am now permanently living here in London and working for the human rights organization called Amnesty International. And I work in the marketing department, trying to inform, raise awareness, and mobilize supporters of different campaigns and causes around the world. So it's a very exciting job. But on the side as well, I have my own blog where I tell stories about what it's like to be a disabled person and an immigrant, and so many other intersections that we're going to talk about today. So yeah, very excited to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So we're going to go into the first question now. So what I wanted to ask you both is, what brings you joy as a person with intersectional identities? So Donna, would you like to go first?
Yeah, what brings me joy? Do you know, I just turned 59 last week. And as a 59, and I've got to get used to saying this, as a 59-year-old Black lesbian, I'm kind of reevaluating what joy means to me now, and where and how I experience it. And when I was younger, on reflection, joy came from big collective actions. You know, I was very active when I came out on the queer scene. So big actions, you know, big pride marches, lesbian strength marches, political activism, anti-poll tax marches, Clause 28, you know, I was very active in terms of those big political moments. And it used to bring me joy being so provocative, to be fair, being so vocal, being so visible, and kind of stirring up debates. I think it made a difference as well, doing those things, being loud, being proud.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that fighting and protecting so many rights was the thing that brought me joy, because it was a collective endeavor. I wasn't doing it on my own. And that sense of being together with thousands of other people on a march brought me joy. It still does. I'm still very active in that sense. But I think as an older person now, I think joy for me is more in the kind of the poetics of the everyday. So, which I think is very much underestimated. You know? So every morning at 6 o'clock, I'm out walking with my two dogs. Brings me joy to be in isolation in Epping Forest or Wanstead Flats or Hackney Marshes. Really sets up my day. You know, it's very great for my mental health and emotional health. Things like looking back. So for my birthday, all of my cards were from friends who all made a reference to, we've been friends for 35 years. We've been friends for 40 years. You know, the longevity, the sustaining of those friendships brings me joy. So it's those, just appreciating those everyday relationships, everyday rituals and routines that I have, really does bring me joy. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks very much. And definitely some of those marches that you referenced were very seismic and changed a lot. So yeah.
I think so.
And Alex, a question to you.
Thank you. That was beautiful,
Yeah.
Donna. Thank you very much. I feel like for me, it's a similar process. I think I find joy right now in London with being, a very intersectional person, in how much empathy or muscle for empathy you can grow having different intersectionalities in your own identity. And that means having an aperture to meeting all different kinds of people and actually opening up to them and having them open up to you. So I think people always say like I have an ease of like making friends, but one thing is that, and another one, like Donna said, was maintaining those relationships and those friendships. And I think because of the successful amount of empathy that one has to grow having such an intersectional background, then you get to sustain those friendships a little bit more than normal. But also that means, meeting people from all over the world, especially in my case, coming from the other side of the world and getting to see all the differences, but not pointing them out in a way that separates us. But actually, I know it sounds cliche, but in a way that actually unites us. The way all of our friends, we sit down and just talk about food from all our different countries and the different idioms and phrases that we have, all of that brings us joy rather than division. So that's great. That's my joy so far.
And that's so important, isn't it? What you're just saying, Alex. It's kind of those friendships it's almost like a political act of resistance. Friendships surviving in the world that we live in.
Absolutely.
In the decades that have preceded us, in the things that have happened in those decades. I think it's a political act of resistance, having friendships as solid as the ones that I think we're both alluding to that we have. Do you know what I mean? And I think that in my role at the university as well, very often students don't ever see me as the head of subject, the head of social work, the head of psychology. They see me as the person with the cycling cap. I'm very accessible. But I think that what brings me joy as well in a work context is the ability to use my body, to use myself as a teachable moment. Students. So there's no getting away from being confronted with, I am a Black lesbian. And when I'm in front of students, when I'm talking about my lived experience, and when I'm talking, and they are forced to confront the fact that they like me. So whatever their views were about whether they have ever seen a Black lesbian before or what they think about that, there's no escaping that they like me, they respect me. I'm in a position of authority within this institution, and I make it very, very clear that I will walk beside them on their learning journey until they graduate. And I think for me, that brings me joy because what I'm doing with my body is showing them their own pathway to achievement. And that brings me joy every day when I'm with my students. So
that's brilliant. You both speaking very warmly and passionately, I guess, about multicultural London as well and chosen family. I wanted to just allude to that, Alex. You was talking about, actually, London is like an amazing melting pot, and just Britain as a whole as well. We have some great all our cities and towns. But at the moment, we are also seeing the rise of the far right. We're seeing our idea that we believe in terms of multiculturalism, and that celebration of intersectionality really rubbished and hated upon. So I just kind of want to say, in this quite difficult climate, like, is there any particular aspects that you'll find challenging, and what would you say about how we can, I guess, overcome those divisions?
That is a great question. I think, again, getting inspired from Donna's previous answer as well, when you mentioned about, your body being a reference for teaching others as well. I always say I'm an open book. My journey is an open book, and I like it to be that way. However, not all readers will like this book, and that's okay. But the criticisms can be harsh to begin with. And also, when they don't like it, the people in all over the world tend to make it very explicit, right? And since moving to London, I think because I'm out and about more because of the accessible transport and all the accessibility for my disability, I do tend to see a lot more hate being expressed outside. So people laughing about, my wheelchair or the way I dress or this and that. And so I feel, I don't know, I've only been here for 5 years, but I feel like, unfortunately, that kind of action is growing in the frequency. And I can see it happening a lot more. And I'm hoping that hate crimes don't increase in this country. But yeah, it's one of the things where I can see it being challenging, like my partner always says, unfortunately, I'm in this scenario, I'm not able to pass a straight for the love of my life. So being that open about my sexuality, just in the way I dress and everything, it's kind of risky. But also in terms of systems as well, I think although the UK is advancing fast when it comes to immigration compared to a lot of other countries in the world, it is not doing it fast enough. So I'm not considered in the immigration system whatsoever, in terms of my disability or my sexuality, my vulnerability being part of those two communities. So the immigration process has been quite deteriorating, quite expensive as well. And although everyone who passes through my path in the UK can make sure to say that Alex deserves to be here because it is a great opportunity in terms of accessibility, it is also not in their hands to make it happen for me. So I'm having to fight the big monster of bureaucracy and immigration processes. So that's kind of like the challenges that I thought about.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And yourself, Donna?
Yeah, I mean, just coming back to what Alex was saying, I just want to kind of just have a conversation with you, Alex, about, in terms of, do you feel, because I feel that the world we're living in right now, there is an increase in vulnerability, because I think there is an increase in people feeling emboldened to repeat certain rhetorics that are repeated by big leaders. So
entitlement, isn't it?
there's
Yeah.
something about, for you, an increase in how you feel vulnerable being in this space and going about your day-to-day business.
Yes, absolutely. And it also depends on, where I moved to, I guess. London is a melting pot. You can find very diverse and welcoming spaces. But at the same time, you can find very, very hostile environments. Right now, I'm living next to the Wembley Stadium, and it's right here. You cannot see it because I've blurred my background, but it's literally diagonal from where I live. And I love this community. I feel super welcome here most of the time, but whenever a match of England versus something other team comes on, I cannot go out. I basically stay home because every I'm sorry for overgeneralizing a little bit, but a lot of like this straight heteronormative men start making fun of me or being hostile at me. And I just feel like the fine line of it escalating into something physical or something major, it's very, very, it's a short line. I don't know if I used that expression correctly. I'm sorry. But anyway, yes, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Donna. What do you think? What's your experience?
So, I mean, you know, in terms of you're very visible in terms of how people can be emboldened to pick on you. Do you know what I mean? I'm very visible as a Black woman.
Mm.
How people can choose to pick on me as I walk through the world or going about my day-to-day business. So, in a sense, that's not changed. But what has changed is the increase in this feeling of people feeling I can now say
The
and
permission. They feel like they've been given permission to be able to,
to do
yeah.
that.
Mm.
Okay, so I find that very challenging, but that's always been a challenge. I grew up in a place called Romford, where, and
Yeah.
back in the days when I grew up there, you know, it was St George's flag central. Do you know what I mean? And my brother and I had to navigate school systems when there weren't very many Black people in Romford, whenever it was 40 years ago or whatever. But what I find challenging is that there's now in this world that we find ourselves in, there's less and less avenues available for the expression of hope.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's kind of, you know, where is hope and where does it find a voice? It finds a voice in little pockets of spaces that I may create, the Rainbow Room,
Mm.
with my friendship group. Yeah, you know, we are still hopeful as a group. We're all very kind of active politically. But I think it's completely horrific, the world that we are entering of.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
it's a dystopian world, and our
Yeah.
eyes are wide open to walking into it. We're not unaware of what's going on and how it's all lurching to the right. And you know, the world that like George Orwell, Margaret Atwood, Octavia Butler, you know,
Mm.
those dystopian worlds that they gave us a glimpse of. I think that little bits of all of those authors and books we are living in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
George Orwell didn't predict surveillance as much as the surveillance we are now under in 1984. I mean, it was horrific for, you know, for what was his name, John Smith in the book. But the levels of surveillance that we are under, our bodies are under, is far beyond what he even imagined.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
find that that is a challenge. And so when I'm going about my day-to-day activist work, I just find it challenging to think, what is the point?
So
What,
can I ask you, just kind of linked to that, like it definitely seems that both of you, definitely Donna, we were talking with your establishment, the Rainbow Room, you're really, you know, representation is a big part of the work that you do. But can I ask, so what does that, how do we get meaningful representation without tokenism? Because this also, the tokenist part is in the kind of tick box exercise is also part of our world. So any thoughts that you guys have on that as well be interesting to add to the mix?
yeah, representation without touch. So I'm all about the grassroots.
Mm.
I'm all about collectivism, community, and however creative we can make our communities and our collective endeavors, I think is the important thing to being able to sustain those things. So I think representation isn't about the big pieces that happen once a year,
Mm.
that happen
Mm.
one day a year. Okay,
Yeah.
big prides, the big, you know, the big statement pieces.
Mm.
Even, you know, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm seeing right now all of the annual awards. And there seems to be the same faces winning all the awards. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, she's won another award. Fantastic. Brilliant. But what about those very, very small organizations who have helplines, and the helpline is their own telephone number because they have no money
Mm.
and they have no visibility? Yeah, what about those small grassroots organizations,
Absolutely. Yeah.
you know, where people are donating, you know, essential items like toiletries and period products out of their own pocket because they have no money,
Mm.
not represented in the award systems? Who knows about them?
Mm.
So for me, kind of, you know, meaningful representation is about getting beyond the big gestures, the big annual gestures, and it's about seeing the everyday. So I'm all about the everyday as well. How can these things be sustained day after day. It's a slog.
Yeah, sure. No, it's really true. And supporting those organizations, especially in the kind of funding climate as well and definitely see that a lot of at Inclusion London as well, supporting deaf and disabled people's organizations, just the funding, it's just like blood out of a stone. But you're absolutely right, the grassroots are really crucial because they're the people that are sustaining our communities. Great. Should we move on to the next question now, Danielle? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so the next question. Well, first of all, thank you so much for all of the things that you said, and I could really identify with a lot of the things that you said, particularly about the visibility. I'm a disabled person. I'm very visible in terms of my disability, and absolutely right, Alex, what you were saying about the type of attention that you get, you know, in certain circumstances can make you feel very vulnerable in society, and I do get that on regular basis. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. But the next question is going to be about cultural norms and collective attitudes. So for many people coming out and navigating life, being LGBTQ plus, alongside religious or cultural identities can be very challenging. So we want to look at experiences of balancing identity and belonging and acceptance. So in your experience, what advice? Well, first of all, you know, starting from Alex, have you experienced difficulties of being LGBTQ plus and balancing cultural religious identities, and what advice would you give it to people in this position?
Oh yeah. You should try growing up Catholic in Latin America and being LGBTQ plus, and also disabled. But I think it's something that I don't have like the recipe solution for, and it's something that I continue to, you know, explore and struggle with every day. But what I can tell you is, although I now consider myself non-religious, a lot of the teachings, rituals, and traditions of being Catholic in Costa Rica sort of stayed with me in a way, one way or another, right? For example, from stuff like my perception of my body and when I'm undressed, feeling guilt about that. I feel like that's something that in Europe is not as abundant as in Latin American countries, but also all the way to just, you know, what you want to do in order to wish someone well. I may start, you know, lighting up candles and stuff like that. And I still participate in some of the rituals to increase my bonding with my family or especially my mom. It's something that I try to share with her, even though I'm not religious myself. But I just feel like that's my only advice right now, is to try to embrace as much as you can and discard whatever doesn't fit you, or what doesn't you struggle the most with in terms of values, and especially when they oppose who you are in terms of diversity. I think collecting and embracing the ones that are positive and loving is the best tip I can give, because they don't take anything away from you. They actually add to your life. So that's my advice.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I can also relate to that. I grew up in Italy, so a very Catholic country, and my disability is acquired. So I've become disabled later on in life at the age of 40. So, you know, in recent years, and you know, the impact that it had on, you know, certain family, you know, like circles, it's just been, you know, that this is the most dreadful thing that can happen to a person, and you know, and therefore we have to pray, you know, like, and God is here for, and all of those things that, you know, like at that age I was mature enough to kind of like think yes, but also no, and but you know, like, but at the same time, you know, for individuals who are younger, who are a little bit more you know, like that element of the guilt that you talked about is something that is immediately inflicted on you, and it's a very unfair feeling. It's a very unfair thing to go through. So thank you for sharing that. And Donna, have you experienced difficulties of being LGBTQ plus and balancing cultural and religious identities? And what advice would you give to people?
Yeah, I don't have any religion. I would consider myself an atheist. However, I've grown up in a Jamaican culture, and that has not been easy in terms of estrangement from certain family members. And actually, there's a positive outcome to that story, which has been going on for most of my life. But actually, I've come to a position where I'm repairing, and that those family members are stepping towards me to help and to repair those kind of those relationships. So I think it's very positive in my entirety. So not just repairing those relationships in terms of me being head of subject academically, it's very good for the family, but I'm a Black lesbian. I'm out, I'm proud, I'm loud, always have been. It's caused a lot of rifts in the family, but I'm still out loud and proud. And even with that, those repairs are happening. So that's very positive. I mean, in terms of the Rainbow Room, and certainly at London Met, there isn't really a one size fits all advice. I mean, I've had students, like the Rainbow Room is a very, very safe space. So students find themselves in the Rainbow Room for all sorts of different reasons. And sometimes for things like, my landlord has discovered that I'm gay and I'm now being evicted. Help. Do you see what I mean? So there's a lot, and you know, my family have found out and they've cut off my financial support. So what am I gonna do? Oh my God. You know, I think that it's, people have to consider their own individual contexts around negotiating the coming out, around their religious and cultural attitudes. Is it safe to come out? You know, is there some kind of community pressure
Yeah.
for people to come out? Because things like housing, things like finances, they're very precarious. So I think that certainly with the Rainbow Room, with me speaking to students in the Rainbow Room, it's about understanding how you can also be othered in queer spaces as a disabled person or as a Black person, for example, as a person. And what does that look like, and how do you experience that, and how can you get on with your day-to-day lives experiencing that and living through that, especially when you don't have any support. So I suppose my emphasis, certainly at work, is where can we support you? Where can we buoy you up? Where can you be safe? When you leave London Met campus and you're on the Holloway Road, where and how can you be safe within your intersectional identities? Where is that? And I feel like it's my purpose, it's my part of my job here as an academic, but as a Black lesbian, to ensure the safety and the duty of care towards my students. So I think for me personally, in life, I've talked about this already, I've cultivated a circle of care. It's my friendship circles. It's my football team that I've played with for 25 years or whatever. It's the women that I play badminton with every Monday. But we sustain each other, we nourish each other. Yeah, and through those spaces, we can get through anything, and we have done, because there's always somebody behind. When you do this, there's somebody there doing that. And lifting the other person up. And I think, you know, that's invaluable. I don't think we can negotiate these spaces without that kind of collective care.
Thank you. Thanks, Donna. And as I was listening to you, I was also reflecting about like my experiences and my identities, and also, you know, like growing up. So I mentioned my disability. That's an identity that, you know, that I haven't acquired disability. It's something that came later on in life. Even though today I'm able to feel proud of it and embrace it and celebrate it. However, my LGBTQ plus identity and my ethnicity as well, because I'm mixed race, and those are identities that have always been part of me. So, you know, since the day I was born. And there are, even though I have, like yourself, Donna, I have a circle, I have a unit, and I surround myself, by people who are like-minded, who are close friends, who are like my chosen family, that there have been times, it hasn't always been like that. Growing up, there were very visibly, times where the way I chose to, to kind of like balance my identities is by being quiet, by being quiet about it. And it's not a great thing, but at the same time, it was the safest thing because I could see that, that there were circumstances in life where, being, outspoken about, things that, identities that I feel very close to and very, very proud of would have exposed me to vulnerability and danger potentially, so sometimes my way of coping in growing up, especially when I was a younger person, my coping mechanism was just zip it for now, and then in life that can have like a double impact. It can have a quick fix there and then, but also you don't want to bottle things up, because eventually in life comes to the point where it's too much, like you need to let it out. So fortunately for me, I had that support, like yourself. But thank you so much for sharing that.
I just want to say as well, I think it's really important, that organisations like ParaPride exist, because I think we are in a situation, you go to a lot of venues, a lot of places with, nights, and the LGBTQ scene in London, they're not accessible for people in a variety of different ways. Definitely, a lot of venues and clubs and stuff definitely not wheelchair accessible.
Yeah.
And then, flip that, trying to find, queer-friendly spaces. Traditionally, I guess, in the disability rights movement, people obviously fighting for access, fighting for kind of key civil rights. And so sexuality was previously not always kind of part of the mix. So I think it's really important that ParaPride, and there's other groups as well that are around to celebrate lots of different different parts of who people are. And I just wanted to add, in terms of talk about personal experiences, growing up, I grew up in London, but Pakistani Muslim background. And for me, being a dyslexic and dyspraxic person, like my mom was not very, I mean, she loved me, she was pushing me, definitely a traditional South Asian mom, but not understanding about, and even later on in my life when I was diagnosed, it was hard for her to kind of get her head around it. So unfortunately, there is ignorance there, and there's a real need for education around, which is really important. But yeah, I found everybody's contributions really, really interesting, inspiring, and what a great space you've curated and created, Donna, because it's increasingly we see so much online as well. It's great that there's a physical space as well that you have. I look forward to visiting one day.
Please do. It's open. As long as the building is open, it's open for people to come in. And all of my front of house colleagues and security colleagues all know that if someone rocks up and says we're for the Rainbow Room, you don't have to give your name, you don't have to say, you just get ushered through to the room.
And this reminds me, actually, Donna, speaking of the Rainbow Room, during Intersectionality Awareness Week, we are having throughout IAW, we are having a series of virtual events, this being one of them, but we are concluding the week with an in-person event at the Rainbow Room on Saturday, 16th of May, between 12 to 2, which is going to be a nice opportunity for people to get together, networking, and have a nice little reception. Of course, all of the speakers and all of the people involved are invited to come. We will have like light refreshments, and it'll be a nice opportunity to conclude the week that way. So while we're talking about the Rainbow Room, I thought I'd quickly put that in there. But Faryal, what you also shared is really important, because it links in really well to a follow-up question that I have on still keeping in the theme of cultural norms and collective attitudes. So Alex, starting from you, how can our community challenge the stigma and prejudice without reinforcing harmful stereotypes? So just to give a bit of context, I suppose a stereotype in the sense of an example could be like religious or ethnic communities are always anti-LGBTQ+, or disabled people are not sexual or don't have an LGBTQ plus identity, you know, that sort of thing.
That's a
I
big
do
one.
think,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, yeah. How
So,
can communities challenge stigma and prejudice without reinforcing harmful stereotypes?
Of course, yeah. I think it's a balance to achieve. Um, I think that, cancel culture, although necessary sometimes, has also made some sort of universal intimidation about curiosity when it comes to getting to know more about other cultures and other backgrounds. So, of course, coming from Latin America and being in London didn't make me someone who understands all types of cultures because there's so many around the world. So, for example, about people from different countries in Asia, I am someone who unfortunately is very ignorant. But what I've tried to do is not let the curiosity die out, but always approach it with respect. So, whenever I meet someone, I make sure that they know that I actually am very curious about getting to know them better, getting to know their culture better, and their identity, but also approach it in a way that I understand that maybe they don't want to show it, and that's okay. I think because we're activists, Donna may identify with this, but because we're activists, as we said before, we're the references for a lot of people, and that means that we're used to just giving away a lot about us, but many other people are not like this, and they're more reserved and they're more um, less social, and that's okay. So I think you should be able to tell, and that will let you know to approach things differently. But yeah, I think as a community, especially as LGBTQ plus uh, people, I think we should stand for what we ask a lot of the times, which is to be involved. And that means getting involved at work. Some of the things that Donna mentioned during the representation question about grassroots, I completely agree, but it also means that for representation in the larger scale to work, for example, in media or at Pride or all of this, you have to actually involve people who are at the grassroots level, people who are more invisible, um, and for that, you need to put them, to give them the opportunity to work. So I think, all these movies, like Hollywood movies, that start saying that inclusion is very hard to achieve, or that they rather hire an actor and an actress to interpret that community. I mean, come on, that's when they're pretty much lazy and they just want the money in an easy way. Because there are actors and actresses out there that who haven't had the opportunity, but you have to look for them, and get them involved. And that's how you actually make good representations that don't get into stereotypes, because those people won't let it happen that you misrepresent them. So yeah, as long as we don't include them, it's going to continue being a cycle and a loop of misrepresentation.
Yeah, I agree, and
yeah, very true.
really, really important what you've said, Alex. And my theme is the everyday and communities and collective grassroots. That's how I go forward in life. And I think that, I think we have to go. I mean, sustaining communities of solidarity, for example, there's nothing glitzy about it. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing. I mean, I was on a women only International Women's Day march, and a whole bunch of women are making placards on a rainy Sunday afternoon in some drafty community hall. There's nothing glamorous about kind of sustained grassroots work. You get in, you show up every day, and you do the work. There's no, and nobody's no, and you do it when nobody's watching. You do it when there isn't an award round the corner that you're going to win because somebody saw you making placards, and then they've nominated you for the placard making award.
We need one of those.
Yeah. Not making placards every year. There's no glamour and glitz. And I think that's something I just really want to emphasize. It's about sustaining those everyday boring grudging, trudging, drudging work that you do as community activists. You show up and you do it when there's nobody watching and there's nobody in the room, and you talk and actively advocate for people when they're not in the room. not when you have a disabled friend or colleague stood beside you, but when they're not beside you, you're actively advocating.
You talk about allyship as well, Donna.
Sorry?
Allyship.
Active allyship.
Yes. Yeah.
Active co-conspirators.
Yes.
Yeah. And these things, you know, they don't come attached with a medal and a LinkedIn post or a Facebook, whatever. You know, there's no recognition for those things. It's just we're doing the work, and that's how we sustain the work.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Should we move on to the next question
Yeah.
now? Yeah. So I'm gonna just move on and talk about a group which has been in the news, in the media, across social media a lot, which is asylum seekers and immigrants, and obviously attracted much, racist vitriol and scapegoating by some of our main political parties and also the far right, which has created a really toxic climate, and a lot of groups supporting asylum seekers and immigrants, and in particular LGBTQ asylum seekers who have to deal with lots of layers of prejudice, have become a target. So I wanted to ask you both what you think the wider LGBTQ community can do to support particularly LGBTQ asylum seekers and immigrants at this particular challenging, difficult times.
Alex, do you want to kick off?
You sure? You can always go ahead, Donna, if you want.
No, really, I insist.
Okay. Just very quickly, I think what you mentioned, Donna, about the St. George's flag, that's the name, right? St. George's. Yeah, because you got to understand, I come from a Spanish-speaking culture as well, and with the flags and all of that. So it's been terrifying for me, just as an immigrant, not an asylum seeker. It's been terrifying to see the display of the flag that I once looked up to for a country to move over to. That I was, my whole childhood, I was obsessed with Britain and I wanted to move here. And I was looking up YouTube videos and the history of Britain and the history of England and this and that. And then all of a sudden, in the matter of weeks, it turned into one of the symbols of fear for me right now. And that's what it is right now. I see the neighborhood where my partner grew up in Watford, and it's surrounded by flags, St. George's flags everywhere. And it's just something that it's also done in a way that is subtle in a way. So some people will say, no, that's because of rugby matches or a football. No, come on. It's not that. We know what it is. Deep down, we all know what it is.
Yeah.
And it's generating fear for someone like me who's come into this country on a legal basis, which is, still moving through visas, very expensive ones and whatever. Now imagine someone who is doing this through the asylum seeking route, which is completely unstable, irregular. It changes almost every month. And when you don't even have the roots of like a stable place to live in, I can only imagine the fear that asylum seekers are going through right now in this country. And I feel like as the LGBTQ plus community, we can do so much better by simply involving them more in our community. Again, it's our task now to find asylum seekers, be them, even if they are not part of the LGBTQ plus community, and ask them what they need, or ask them to hang out, ask them questions, become their friends. That's how the circles that we talked about came to be to begin with. And through that, I think we can find out that they are needing so much support in so many different intersections. So yeah, that's the one thing I'd say. I'm sure you're going to meet an asylum seeker here and there in your life in Britain right now. And you should make sure to reach out and ask how they are, become their friends, and get to know what they need.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I think that something important for me is that these, like in what you were saying, Alex, in reaching out, in seeking out, this is not a passive activity. this is an active, we're activists, yeah? This is an active activity. Like, we're not plateauing, we're not sitting back on our haunches waiting for asylum seekers and refugees to fall into our lap. We have to do something.
Mm.
We have to do something. Certainly for me, within this context of this institution, London Met University, for me, it's about practical support.
Mm.
I can open up the resources of the university through the Rainbow Room and other mechanisms through policies and processes within the university to kind of offer practical support. Do you know what I mean? So we have the resource of, I don't know, if somebody, and we do have students that come and they're in, you know, they are asylum seekers and refugees. I've given a statements before to bolster their case. For example, there was a student at London Met. I know you, I've seen you in the Rainbow Room, that's good enough for me. You know, that we have a monthly, I'm in partnership with the NHS Foundation Trust, and we have a partnership with them whereby they come to the Rainbow Room once a month and they offer sexual health testing, information and advice, as well as pregnancy advice. Sexual health services and resources, practical support for people that might need it. You know, signposting them to other organisations relating to housing that, you know, I have a lot of networks now. So signposting and working with those organisations to signpost vulnerable students to is practical support that I can offer, that London Met can offer. And making alliances with organisations like Persian LGBT, like Black and Brown Rainbow, like Outcome, which is a LGBT part of Islington Mind, and who work with LGBT asylum seekers and refugees, and partnering up with these organisations, in out the resources of London Met, but also doing work together.
Yeah, so active partnerships, Donna.
Active partnerships.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not just a, you know, I'll send somebody along to you on Tuesday, because I mean they have delicious lunches, I have to say. But it is like, what else can we do? How can we sustain this partnership beyond I'm sending someone to you on a Tuesday for a beautiful lunch?
Yeah, definitely. It feels as well like in these times, you know, we also need to show up. You know, there's a lot of fascist activity on the streets as well, like how we kind of show up to counter demos as much as possible. And that's definitely something that Inclusion London has been trying to, you know, work marching with a lot of fellow disability rights organisations at the last big anti-fascist march, and also trying to make those marches accessible as well. So it's an education process, which isn't always, you know, it happens, but you know, how do we make marches like that accessible to wheelchair users or accessible to people with restricted mobility? But again, it's about showing up and enabling as many people as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
all day, every day, not just when the march is happening.
Yeah, absolutely, very important.
So I'm part of another organisation called Million Women Rise, and
yes, yeah,
and, you know, at the end of the day, disabled Black and Brown women, because it's an organisation that was started by global majority women, it's for all women, started, and it's still at its core Black and Brown women's movement. The march is fronted by disabled Black and Brown women, and the march goes at the pace of those women at the front, and that's just the end of it. Do you know what I mean? And we also have a big double-decker bus, so that actually people that can't you know, do the whole march, they sit on the bus, making as much noise as they can and being as visible as they can. You know, it's actually from the ground up, the foundations up, we take account of, at the forefront, the most vulnerable of us.
I think that's a great segue actually into the next question, Danielle. Yeah,
absolutely. The next question is about mainstream Pride events. Since Pride season is fast approaching, infamous Pride season. No, I'm joking on that. I'm going to get cancelled now. Let's say things. But yeah, to give you know, this goes well with what you were just saying, and so mainstream Pride events are often showcase diversity and intersectionality on their stages and in their public campaigns, but often this visibility isn't reflected in the organization's structures and their leaderships and their decision-making processes. Also, there has been some recent controversy that goes around the Pride in London, and also the collapse of Manchester Pride, which has been a huge thing. So, you know, the whole concept of mainstream corporate sponsored pride is being questioned. And so the question is, well, to you, Donna, starting from you, how can mainstream pride events in the UK grow and develop to truly represent us all?
Well, sticking with my theme of get away from it being so corporate focused,
absolutely,
in community driven.
yes,
Get back to the community.
yeah,
That's what they did in New York, where they've got the alternative pride.
that's right.
Got the big pride, and then you've got the other pride around the back where there are no trucks and lorries are allowed. You come with your shoe leather to march on the streets, not kind of gyrate around on buses and things, and to walk with whatever your placards are and whatever cause you're marching for on the streets, and everybody is included. You know, I stopped going to London Pride many years ago because I rocked up with my son. I said, come on, son, we're hitting the streets, you know, come with your mum. Got to the Pride, and then, quite frankly, it still incenses me. I was confronted with a load of barricades in the street.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, let's go over the top, son. And I was apprehended by
Oh, God.
to be a 15-year-old white lesbian who said, no, you can't march unless you've got a
That's right. Yeah, they stopped the fact before you could actually join the back of the big parade, and now you can't do that. But actually, we don't know what's going to happen this year, right?
Born, I was rocking up to Pride marches in the street because it's my march for whatever the reason I'm marching for.
Yeah.
Apprehended and stopped, or well, she attempted to stop me anyway, from marching in my own march.
I know.
I didn't have a wristband, and I wasn't part of a big corporate group, and I had who had paid. Was to me something completely alien, and it was something I just could not support. We did march, my son and I, in the end.
Good.
I said, try throw me off my own march. Throw me off. I don't think you would want the publicity.
Absolutely.
Throw me off my own march.
Yeah.
So we did march, but I've never been back. I think the central point of what I'm saying is move away from the corporates and the big vans and it's just the one big bang event once a year. Go back to the everyday, because that is where work is done.
Yeah.
Within communities.
Thank you. Thanks,
Donna. If you don't mind me add just very quickly here, but Donna, I think like by doing that and getting away from corporations as well, you might see where the true support for the cause actually is, you know. It's not that I don't want to see the new Netflix show cast, parading with us.
Yeah.
I love when Heartstopper
I saw
cast. It was lovely, and they all enjoyed it just as much as me. But if you're attracting people through only that to a parade, then where is the actual roots of what we were doing to begin with? In Costa Rica, I've been in the parade in the march since the start, almost the start of it. I think 1 or 2 years after the first Pride March, and it was only 5 of us. Let's say, of course, it was a bit more, but it was so very few of us. And then it grew all the way to millions of people in the latest years. But everyone should be able to march so that we actually show that support. We march with the trucks of different corporations as well now, because gentrification is happening there as well. But you know what I mean? We should all be able to march with everyone, even the corporations. But why the barricades? I don't understand that either. And I'm sorry, Daniel, I don't know if I can say this, but like in the past few years, we've tried to march together as much as possible, but then they put us all the way at the end of the parade.
I know.
And we've given feedback, both of us have, and they don't seem to listen. So
that's a disgrace, no? But then that's a product of how big and corporatized these things become.
Yeah, but they become a victim of their own success.
So many people are then not heard and ignored. It's an absolute disgrace. Do you know what I mean? Pride isn't just about the party, the pageantry, the progress flag. Pride was about protest. Pride at its
Absolutely.
roots is about protest. And where is that protest now represented? And who was protesting?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel as well like almost the when you look at Pride in London or even look at Manchester, and there's been other prides as well. It's like the corporate pride model has failed. We had in London though last year Trans Pride, which was a great celebration of LGBTQ, obviously identity supporting trans people, and that had like 100,000 people at it, and that felt very much a return to the roots of what the protest and radicalism is. But yeah, it's a really well, I'm kind of what going to wait with bated breath to see what happens now with I feel my partner as well, she kind of was like, no, you can't even like stand in the street. Pride and There's already very one tribe of people that turn out in Soho. They're not your people. But I, as a Londoner and someone who grew up in London, I still feel a real affinity to London Pride, and I will like to go and like to participate and whatever. But at the moment, it does feel very alienating. It does need a return to its roots ASAP. But yeah, we have to keep an eye on that. And next time, ParaPride should be at the front.
Well, I mean,
without question,
we storm to the front.
without that, but that should be baked in to
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally.
And you're right, Alex, just to go back, because last year we marched, ParaPride had a space to go in, and you and your group was there, and a few other people were there. It was about 20-25 people all together. And like we were all geared up, we were all ready. And then it just gradually turned into this, like really tiring experience where we just had to wait. We had to wait in line. We couldn't enter the march because we had to wait for this corporate group to go by, and then this bank to go by, and then this other group, and then the army to go by. And literally, they're like waiting for. It felt like so long. We were exhausted by the time we got in the march. And it's just and this, Donna, it goes back to what you were saying about like all the bigger organizations and the big visibility. And then what about grassroots? Like we feel that this is Pride in London, there's a lot of controversy, and we're not really in agreement with many things, especially with the way that they handle things and the representation and stuff like that. However, it is the largest LGBTQ plus event, and for us, visibility in a space like that, we want to be part of that. Also, if we don't.
But in that space, do you feel visible? Because I've just heard you say you're pushed to the back, all these big trucks and whatever are going by, you're waiting for hours. Are you visible in that?
It's not, we don't feel the visibility, you don't feel the enjoyment as well, because it's just like so it's just not very unenjoyable thing. But like you still want to be able to do that, but it also questions, is this worth it? Do we really want to put ourselves through this? It's a big responsibility because you have like a large group. So yeah, there's a lot of questioning marks on that, the future of Pride in London. Well, not Pride in London specifically, but like just like major mainstream prides and participation. And I think you're right, having an alternative is always better. Luckily, yeah, there are many.
We have a few. We have UK Black Pride as well, and we have the Dyke March as well, which has been great. But yeah, we need to. I personally feel this needs to be like a time of reckoning with the corporate prides, and we need to absolutely go back to the roots and do away. I mean, some of the sites I've seen through London is just unbelievable. Some of the corporates and where it's a marketing opportunity, which is whatever, but you can't exclude the community and the communities that we have. Yeah,
it is a market. This is me being cynical. Of course, it's now a marketing. You go past Nike, everybody's got rainbow flags everywhere, blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, who is it now representing? It's just one big party. I mean, at one point, it wasn't even called Pride anymore. It was called Mardi Gras, and it was marketed as the biggest free party in Europe.
Yeah.
Then there was such a backlash to that.
That's all we do as queer people, party, apparently.
Yeah, But I just think it doesn't represent me. Now, I think there's lots of different ways to kind of, you know, celebrate and protest. And I know London Met really supports London Pride. There's a, you know, and it's great. London Met has a big bus, and students are very well represented. I never go, but that, you know, I make no judgment to people that go.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Self and be visible. But I would rather just bring up the rear guard action, which is the everyday, which is like when all that's going on and everything's focused on that, I'm still in the back room doing my stuff that there's no glamour stuff, the unglamorous. I would rather be doing that. I'm not saying anything about the success of it and the hugeness of it. I think fantastic. It's very successful. UK Black Pride, now the biggest in the country, world, apparently.
That's great.
A massive. I preferred UK Black Pride when it used to be a party in Paradise Park, and I would rock up there and I'd know everybody. You know, I'm not saying anything about it growing, but I'm saying as it's grown, where is the sense of I can rock up on my own and feel like I'm part of it, like I used to be able to do when it was smaller, because people were friendlier. People saw you, had the time to stop and talk to you. But now everybody's just parading around, going here, going there, and it's, you know, there isn't really the time. Nobody talks to each other at UK Black. People they don't know. People don't do that. I think that's the thing that's lost. Not that it's got big and successful, but how can we make something big and successful where people still want to make genuine connections with people? Where people actually talk to people. They're genuinely interested to talk to you.
For a start, let's get the barricades off in the London one.
Ban the barricades.
Ban the barricades.
Ban the barricades.
Put down a placard.
Ban the
Thank you very much. I think we are getting to the end of our event today for Intersectionality Awareness Week. So, you know, I just want to, from my side, you know, thank you so much to all of our panelists, you know, for your honesty and for your insights and, you know, your experiences. I think that, you know, today's conversation reminds us that, you know, living at intersections and different identities can bring a lot of challenges, can also have a lot of strength and a lot of really great achievements. And, you know, I think that also it reminds us that we need to stand in solidarity, especially for, you know, the marginalized communities. So, yeah, and I just want to say thank you for, you know, being part of this conversation. Faryal, do you have any closing remarks?
No, it's been a real pleasure, and it's been great to we've put the world to rights and talked about a lot of different things, and yeah, I look forward to meeting you both and continuing the conversation another time. But yeah, it's been a great convo.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
And I would just like to say that if, when people have watched this and considering it, maybe people can actually reflect on what can I do? What can I do for solidarity?
Yeah, definitely.
Do something.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks to Francis as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to stop recording now.